Uh, can we bid this April 2011 deadline as goodbye?
I think it's too early to say that. I would still believe that based on what the FM's speech reads, and we have the copy now, he continues to believe that despite this setback, so to speak, of today, he still believes that it's possible. I think the answer lies with regard to the fact that we want to ensure that the constitutional amendment bill is placed in the monsoon session, albeit it will be passed in the winter session. I think it all depends on that. And while the states have asked for another month to consider the amendments, and there is therefore now a third version which is going to come up, I think the important thing is you place it in the monsoon session and you keep amending it as we go along. If you were to do that, then I personally believe you can still make the 1st of April deadline.
Okay, even if we can make the 1st of April deadline, Madhavan, let's talk about the nature of the GST in itself, because what we understand is that the process of accommodating states is currently underway. Now the GST Council will not determine the rates. They will only be able to recommend the rates, and the Council will have to work by consent. So we were already talking about an imperfect GST, but this sort of back and forth with the Council not even having the ability to determine the rates. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it's another of the compromises that the centre has been forced to make to get the GST going. My personal view here is that I would rather that I think we are all agreed that the GST should have been not just a recommendatory body. The council should have been had the powers to make sure that only with decisions in the council should amendments and modifications take place. So to the extent that that has been watered down by making or visualizing the council as a recommendatory body, we do have a challenge. The only answer to that is that I think the economics will be really the only answer, in the sense that if there is a consensus on the GST rates and the design of the GST, and one individual state or so wishes to make a deviation, and the council were to be of the view that that deviation should not be allowed, I think firstly from a expediency and a possibility from a political standpoint, that particular state will find it very challenging to go against the grain of the council, first of all. But I think more importantly, the economics, given the fact that the dual GST applies throughout the chain through to the end consumer, I think one individual state will find it very hard, given the design and the scheme of the dual GST, to sort of go against the consensus view on what an appropriate rate should be, or what a particular modification should be like.
All right, Madhavan, hold that thought. We've also got with us Hari from EY, our own economic policy editor, Siddharth Darabi, joins us now. Siddharth, take it over.
The question really at this stage, and Mr. Madhavan answered it partly, is that if this is going to be a recommendatory body, and we already see several states, the BJP states opposed to it, a key UPA ally like the DMK opposed to it, problems from Uttar Pradesh, how easy or difficult will it be able to achieve consensus for determining rates? Because that is the key thing. The earlier draft had a more positive and definitive sort of nature to it. What do you feel? Will it be easy enough to do?
Is that question to me?
Yes, Mr. Subramaniam.
Yeah. The fact is, the amount of watering down that has happened on the entire constitutional amendment, on the entire functions and powers of the GST Council. The challenge is, it will entirely depend on the maturity and sagacity of the members of the council, to maintain a GST design which would have been the most desired design, But what worries is, there has been so much of watering down by the centre to make it happen. Now you'll have to entirely depend on what those members of the council decide as a consensus. In fact, and the council, as per the ticker I saw... Yeah, please go
ahead, please. No, my question was therefore that why is the... Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead, yeah.
No, my question really was that why is the finance minister choosing to bend so far and to this extent by virtually sort of doing away with the guiding principle behind this entire council? Why is the finance ministry so keen?
I mean, the only reason I can see is that there seems to be no consensus emerging otherwise, because the entire concept of fiscal autonomy is being thrown at him by the states, that the only way he seems to bring about some degree of consensus is by throwing into everything that the state asked. So you see a scenario where from a flawless GST, we have come down to a completely watered down situation. And even in spite of all the effort of the Union Finance Minister, there don't seem to be a consensus that is emerging. I am not sure whether the Constitution Amendment Bill will reach the Parliament in this monsoon session. So then are we looking at another challenge of another deadline being missed? And there has to be an end to this uncertainty, because all the stakeholders, whether it's the industry, whether it's anybody who's interested in this GST to come along, really wants to know, is it going to happen on April 1st, 2011? And is this something that is happening will really bring about the desired effect of the GST design that we all have been expecting? So the reason why the Union Finance Minister is doing what he is doing is because there seems to be no other way that he can bring about this disparate states on their views,
All right, Shireen, you have heard our experts say that perhaps a watered down GST is something that may be given a miss for one more year, and a flawless GST instead of a flawed GST might be better for India Incorporated. Back to you, Shireen.
Well, Madhavan, would you agree with that summation of Siddharth?
As I said at the beginning, given the amount of compromises made by the finance minister, I'm hoping that the states would at least respond in kind at this late stage and make it happen by April 2011. So I do not necessarily agree that we are already bidding goodbye to April 2011. I'm still hopeful given the degree of compromise made by the union government. Now, at this stage, clearly we have a challenge of time, even if the states were to agree, and that's really the point to be considered. But I think there are a variety of ways that one could visualize us making the deadline of April 2011 a reality. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It will certainly not be a perfect GST, but for whatever it's worth, let's have a GST and let's refine it as we go along. So if that be the outcome, we can still live with that outcome. At least let the uncertainty end.
Hari, would you agree that we can live with that outcome of an imperfect GST and sort of perfect it as we go along? But again, we're coming back to that timeline and the deadline because, as you said, uncertainty really isn't doing anything for anybody at this point in time. The question is the IT infrastructure is not ready. We still have a majority of the BJP-ruled states as well as some Congress allies not agreeing to some of the key recommendations made by the Finance Ministry at this point in time. So how realistic is that timeline, and also do you think that we should really bat then for this imperfect GST?
Shireen, in the federal polity that we are, I never expected a flawless GST really to be unfolded. We are all willing to live with a somewhat imperfect GST. That's not the issue. What really is worrying all of us is that with every empowered committee meeting, there is this hope that is built up that we will come up with a consensus, that we will probably present the Constitutional Amendment Bill in the monsoon session. But every time there seems to be another uncertainty that creeps up. And as you rightly said, I just saw a ticker in your own channel that there could be a third draft of the bill. And there could be another meeting in early September. Right. No. And in every week that goes by, your time for getting these things done by April 1st looks more and more a challenge. I mean, like Mr. Madhavan said, okay, none of us want to lose hope, but there is a degree of uncertainty that is now really becoming a challenge, both for the industry, because everybody wants to know, is there going to be a transition on April 1st, or will there not be a transition? Forget about the preparedness of the government. There needs to be time given to the industry for preparing for the entire transition.